Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the week 4 go-to training. Glad everybody made it. It's pretty exciting. Last go-to training of the month. And yesterday we were talking a little bit about why we do the things that we do. Kind of the whole start with why concept, which I think is pretty important. Um, we're going to look over mindfulness and emotion today in our go-to training. People I'm sure are sad that this is the last go-to training. I know that 9:30 in the morning. I know that's when everyone wants to be up. As for me as a new parent, I'm like, oh, I'm well up before 9:30, so it's not a problem for me. Um, but right, we'll just jump right into it. We got decent amount of stuff that we're going to cover. But basically, emotion, not in all cases, but can generally be summed up by this model. We have an activating event, so some type of adversity, something happens, maybe someone does something. We'll just say someone cuts us off in traffic. So that happens. I, someone cuts me off and I get annoyed or angry. I might then form some beliefs. I might say, oh, that person, they did it to me. They did it to be a jerk to me. Whatever. I make up a story at some point in my life that I then believe. It can be any number of things. I'm sure people have, all sorts of stories about, this happened and I told myself that this was the scenario. And, we kind of, right, we make up a story about it and we start to believe that story. Then we have the consequence of that. We kind of start to act based on that idea. We might let that have kind of some reign over our life, at least for a little while. Maybe I'm gonna drive up next to that person and glare at them, or I see them at the next stoplight and I'll mouth something to them. I'll say, "You're a terrible driver." Um, whatever our response is. Um, we might, or it might just be that we kind of swallow it, but we're kind of irritated. It kind of just puts a bad taste in our mouth to start our day. So emotion can kind of look like that. Where it changes in it, the format changes is because a lot of people, this is it. This is the anatomy of the emotion. It just looks like this. Something happens, we have a belief about it, and then we are burned up, or we stay mad at someone, we hold a grudge, we whatever, or sometimes we let it go and we were annoyed briefly, and that's the end of it. But a lot of times this is as much as people get. This is the base model, if you will, of emotion. And as people get older, kind of emotional maturity comes along. It gets better and better. But this is essentially the base model of emotions. We move on to disputation, where we dispute the story or the idea that we have. We start to challenge the ideas about the story. That story I said, oh, this person cut me off in traffic because they're a jerk and they're trying to make my life difficult. I can start to dispute that. I can say, hey, maybe they just didn't see me. Maybe they weren't paying attention, or maybe they've got a pregnant wife in the car that they're trying to get to the hospital. Whatever it is, none of those things may actually be the case. But the idea is to find, to challenge the beliefs that are holding us back, to leave us in a positive frame of mind. So what I mean by that is, right. We challenge you know uh, the stories that we make up, and we say, hey, you know what? Maybe it was just this. Maybe it was something that maybe this person just they're having a bad day. This is going on. Because far too often, and I've seen kind of people's whole social lives change over this. Is maybe someone doesn't invite us to a party, and we might say, oh well, they didn't invite me out, and it's because they don't like something about me, and I'm going to fundamentally change who I am, or not hang out with those people. I'm not going to talk to them anymore because they didn't invite me, because they don't like me, they don't like something about me. And this is kind of, I feel like, pretty common in school. It's like we're making new friends, we're navigating new social climate. It's really easy to fall into that mindset of, it's like, well, oh, this, maybe a person who I wanted to go out on a date with. I asked them out and they said no. But then I saw them talking to somebody else, and I decided that I was going to be more like that person that they were talking to, so that they would like me. We get these ideas, and maybe the reality is, like, that person is, just got out of a bad relationship, and that's their friend that they're talking to, or that's their sibling, or all sorts of things. But we'll run with some ideas that we form, that are the beliefs that we form, when we're emotionally upset. We get upset because we were disappointed, things didn't go our way, whatever the case may be. um, and we go with these new belief systems that we have, and they can kind of run our lives for a long time. So really, the kind of what comes along later on is disputing those things, saying, hey, you know what, this you know this person didn't want to go out with me because they didn't want to go out with me. Who knows what it was? Right? There's probably some logical, or maybe just they just weren't into me, and I should just move on. Um, Whatever it is, we wanted to challenge the negative ideas that we've concocted, and come up with energizing and empowering, things. So we want to review our emotions, focus on our positive emotions, and kind of come up with a rational outlook. It's like, well, I'm a decent person, and if this person, like they just didn't want to hang out with me, or be my friend, or go out with me, or whatever it is, that's okay. That's just how life is. Sometimes these things happen. I'm just going to move on with my life, which is a pretty rational outlook. It takes time to develop that, though. That's what I'll really say. That's not part of the base model of emotional maturity. For some people who have, like, had great support systems, and maybe parents who really instilled those things in them, perhaps those things are a little bit better developed. But as a young person, I know that I did not have those. And I'd kind of make up a story and say, oh, well, this happened because of this, and I should do this to fix it. And they were very seldom connected. But I'm sure everyone at some point has had some sort of experience with that. If you don't have to share, like, it gets a little bit personal at that point. If you want to, you're more than welcome to, but no pressure on that. We kind of want to combat faulty thinking. So kind of all these different mentalities of trying to like fall into different categories. The some of them are more obvious than others. And plate spinning is kind of trying to, you've seen a person with sticks in the plates, and they're trying to spin all the plates and keep them all moving. Um, we get these ideas about faulty thinking, that we can do everything, or that we maybe should take on certain personality traits or roles that make more sense, or we believe the labels that put on, that maybe someone has put on us, or that we've adapted on our own. We say, oh, well, I fall into this category, so I'm this. I'm whatever people say I am, and whatever that is. It can be any number of things, but like a label in a social circle is, it's very seldom. It's a broad sweeping generalization about a person, and it tends not to be particularly accurate. Um, I think that it's probably one of the things that's best to challenge those things. I know for me, when I first started, for years working at Full Sail, I would wear my dress clothes and a bow tie every day to work. Just like every day, that's what I was wearing. And it's cool, and people got to recognize me, and they're like, "Oh, that's the guy with who always wears the bow ties." Um, and it was it was fine for a while, but I kind of got to this point where I'm like, oh, I think that people see me more of, they see me as a bit of a caricature, and they just say, oh, he's a, chipper guy, always wears bow ties. But maybe they didn't, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But for me, I said, you know what? Maybe it's worthwhile to kind of like not look like that every day, because then people say, oh, maybe there's something else to this person. Maybe there's something a little bit deeper. And not to say that people have made the assumption about me that I was a certain way based on the way that I dressed. But I was, whenever I would show up and I didn't have that on, people would get really disappointed, and I was like, I don't just like live my life in a bow tie. But again, not that that was a bad label to have, but right, I wanted people to kind of get the idea that like, oh, I have different ideas. I can contribute. I'm not just like I'm not just like this kind of caricature of a person. So I think that's pretty important. Real quick, uh, I'll go to the next slide. There is in your material section, there is a multitasking thing. If you would all click on it, we're going to watch a video on multitasking, and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right. So, what are your thoughts on multitasking before or after that video, or just in general? Kind of what are some people's thoughts? If you want to raise your hand, I can call on you. It might be easier than typing. If you want to jump in, what do we do with multitasking? Do we try to do it? Do we not do it at all? Do we try it and think we're getting somewhere and then find out maybe that we're not? Can anyone hear me? Hello? Is everyone typing feverishly? Ah, there we go. Good, good. I just want, I just wanted to make sure. It's been a while since anyone typed anything, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, multitask when you play video games. How does that work? What are you trying to do when you play video games? Video games and what? A lot of people will try to multitask, but not everyone can do it. Totally. Yeah. Okay. That is factual. Listening to a podcast with video games. Okay. Sure. Do you think that you get a lot out of the podcast? Bill, I normally try it when I'm reading, and it really doesn't work. I feel like you have to read this to reread the section. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Laura, I've learned that I really can't have my phone out while trying to read a textbook and listen to music at the same time. Yeah, I yes, that I believe that. I have kind of similar stuff. If I have a hard time writing and listening to music that I really like. If I'm trying to, I end up writing song lyrics if I do, so I'm not paying that close of attention. Um, Chris, yeah, you get less out of the podcast. That's kind of what I figured, because your attention is elsewhere. Um, yeah, video games is kind of a form of multitasking in itself because you're paying attention to the screen, you're doing all your hand movements, you're thinking about all the other things that are going on in the game. Absolutely, um, I could definitely say that I don't think I could reasonably play a video game and get anything else done. I can't really hold a conversation if I'm playing a video game and talking. Maybe like conversation necessary for the game, like if I'm wearing a headset talking to my friend on the other end. But generally speaking, yeah, it's difficult to play a game and do that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, cool. I just kind of wanted to get everyone's thoughts and feelings on that. Yeah, I think that multitasking is definitely one of those things that it's really difficult, and we're not really getting a ton done. We when we multitask, we're trying to get multiple things done. We think that we're going to economize and use our time like in an awesome way. Um, what happens is that essentially our attention just switches. We go back and forth quickly from one thing to the next, and it ends up, all of our ideas kind of get stuck. They all merge in together, and we aren't really effective at any one of the tasks that we're doing. Basically what people have found is that when we're trying to multitask, especially in kind of maybe in our educational sense, we end up with lower proficiency and potentially lower IQ. Um, the idea to overcome that is the 20-minute rule. Time batching is kind of the other idea, and understanding what it all looks like. So time batching, if you haven't already gotten to it, I think it gets covered later on, is this idea that you just do tasks in batches. So I'll spend, for me, like when I need to grade, like I sit down and I grade and I grade and I grade and I grade and I grade, and I have to do a big chunk of grading. If I put an hour into grading, I get a lot more done than if I'm constantly interrupted during my grading. So I like to come in real early in the mornings. A lot of times you'll see you're getting grades back from me, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, because no one's in the office at 8. Most people don't come in until 9. I can just sit there, throw my headphones, listen to something calm and quiet, and really spend a lot of time, doing my work. I'm also usually pretty highly caffeinated at that time of day, so I can give it my full attention. I can read faster. I can get through my work, in a much more effective way if I say, okay, well, I'm going to optimize on I'm caffeinated, so I'm going to give this my full attention. There's no one here to distract me, and I have the time and I need to get it done. So, putting the time in to get batches of work done is pretty effective. Mindfulness is the next thing we're going to talk about. Again, there's in the material section, there's a video on mindfulness. If you'll all go check that. We'll watch it and we'll come back and talk about it. I think mindfulness is pretty exciting and kind of fun. So check it out. And alrighty, so coming back, I really like the definition that they give at the beginning of mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. I think that's super important. It's the not being carried away by it. Yeah, no, Tilly, I'm glad to hear that. I think the animation is really fun. It's cool. There's a good series of videos that Habify puts out, so check out more of them if you want. I think they're really good at illustrating a lot of my points for class, so I use them. Um, but right, you've met so many people like the hedgehog. Yeah. Um, what do you mean by that, Lauren? Like people who maybe are like get upset and get carried away, or people who genuinely look like a hedgehog. Road rage. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Um, it's funny. I feel like I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected, but like uh, when I get in my car, like things happen in traffic, and like I don't get mad, but like I'll just blurt out like just really just obscene things at people who make me angry in traffic. I don't do anything about it. Like I'm not like gonna chase them or scream or glare. I'm just kind of like whatever. But I will have those kind of like knee jerk reactions where I just call someone a terrible name, and it's within my car. My windows are up. They can't hear me, but it's just like one of those reactions. I fortunately, I feel like I'm most of the time at a decent place with that, where I'm like, okay, well, like I don't get carried away by it. I say, yeah, that annoyed me in the moment. Now I'm over it. But it's kind of hard to get there. It takes practice. That's the whole thing that they're saying, about meditation and practicing it. Long term, it's something that it's not just instilled in us, and generally not something that we're taught. But it's definitely useful. Has anyone had anything where maybe they feel themselves when they start getting carried away with an idea, an emotion, something that they kind of use as a reset, or something that they can do that helps them? And feel free to raise your hand, because I realize that'll be a long thing to type out. I know for me, it's one of those things where I can feel myself becoming very overwhelmed in a situation. When I started teaching, I was um, I had a meeting that was scheduled, and I missed it. And I missed it for like dumb reasons. Like, I had like a reminder in my Outlook, but I was like, I got up from my desk and I went to go have coffee with one of my friends on the other side of campus. And I missed this meeting, and I came back, and I remember my boss like emailing me and saying like, "Are you sick? Is everything okay? Like, you missed this meeting." Um, Controlled breathing, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a good helping, a good one. So basically, like, I like got into like a panic. I was like, "Oh no, I missed this meeting! Like, I look like an idiot. I'm gonna get in trouble." And and I was like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" And I just had to like kind of calm down and take a few minutes. And my first instinctual knee jerk reactions were like, "Yeah, say so, like, they gave you an out. Say you're sick or something like that. Make something up." And I just had to sit there and not do anything for a little while and just take a few minutes. Um, that's the one nice thing about communication via email, is you're allowed to just take a few minutes. You don't have to send off a response immediately. Just take a minute and say, okay. And I did. I just sat there and I said, I really apologize. I forgot about the meeting, and I was on the other side of the campus. I just forgot. That's all it was. And I didn't have a good excuse. I just said, "Well, I forgot this was happening." They said, "Okay, well, next time just check your Outlook calendar before you, go leave our area." And I said, "Okay," and that was it. But like in my head, it was like this crazy, huge. I made a much bigger deal of it in my head than it was in reality. Um, yeah, Asia says, with road rage, try to take a deep breath and say to yourself, they don't know any better. Absolutely, that's a great one. Lauren, I kind of just do this thing where I stop and breathe and go through whether or not I should actually be upset, and tell myself it's not logical. If it isn't, yeah, that's fantastic. I feel like those are a lot more advanced ideas. Again, things that took, I'm sure, a lot of practice. It's not stuff that we kind of instinctually just come preloaded with. Those are definitely tools that it takes learning and takes practice. So I'm glad to hear that those are things that you have going for you. um, Diffuse everything with comedy. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do. Breathe, try to clear your head enough to ask why. Yeah, absolutely. So right, mindfulness really encourages us to be in the moment. Self-reflection statements. Tony, same way, freak out, usually have a silly knee-jerk reaction. Usually when it's a really big deal, you need to calm down by using some escapism. Games, books, movies, just need to get out of the real world problems. And then when you come back to them, what should you deal with them? Yeah, totally. Exactly. I think the reality of the situations, like most situations that we find ourselves in, um, we tend to make bigger deals out of them than they are. Sometimes, things are big deals, but it's when you stop and you take the minute and you say, "Is this a big deal? How trivial is this?" The one thing that I will say about the knee jerk reactions that we have, they usually are not helpful long run. It's like I feel like it's like you have a knee jerk reaction to like kind of whatever it is tends to make the situation worse, which is why unfortunately in a lot of cases I've had to say, hey, my knee jerk reactions are not good in the long term. They don't make the situation better. Perhaps I should stop, take the time, and reflect before I do anything about this. That's kind of it's just what we need to do. Take the time to reflect before we decide to act on things. So right, self-reflection statements, appreciating the now. That's a big thing with mindfulness. Being able to stop and look and say, hey, you know what? I appreciate my current situation, where I am, what I'm doing. It's not easy. That's a fact. Self-awareness, being aware of your surroundings, what's going on, how you feel, what your mood is. All of that stuff is pretty useful. When you can actually stop and take the time to appreciate what's going on and not be worried about, every next thing you have to do. If you all don't have Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes next month, take Monday. It's the day when you absolutely will have like nothing to do. You can just be like, okay, all my turn-ins were last night. I don't have anything to do today. You can actually sit and be calm and, go enjoy something without having any real stuff to think about. Take advantage of that day because it's tough and you don't get a lot of them. There's not a lot of time in school when you have that free time. So take advantage of it. Right, connecting everything. Practicing mindfulness will help us avoid multitasking. Keeping awareness of our emotions, and it all becomes habit eventually. We get to a point where we can stop and we say, and it sounds like some people have developed really good habits. We're like, okay, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to follow through with my knee jerk reaction. Whatever it is, I think it's really useful to kind of sit and be with those things and say, okay, well, this is a pretty helpful way for me to live and be successful. But it takes practice. Doing it and doing it and doing it over and over and over again is really the only way to ensure that you're successful at it. So practice it. Does anyone have questions about this or about anything else? You can raise hands or type in the chat box, whatever makes you happy. If you don't have questions, you're free to go. That's our time. If you do, stay, hang out, ask them. And yeah, that's it. No, there's no group activity this week. The extra attendance, yeah, you're welcome. The extra attendance is, it's listed. It's on the platform. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick, and I'll tell you what it is. It's a different activity. I think it is. It's like a reflection. Personal growth assessment. That's what it is. That is in lieu of a group activity. So, which, if I remember correctly, is the balance wheel. The balance wheel that we did at the beginning, where kind of it's like a pre and post test. So we're doing the balance wheel. Yeah, thanks, Till. You have a good day too. Yeah, thank you all for being here. You're very welcome. Yeah, you have a good one as well. If anyone has questions, jump in with them. Otherwise, have a great day. Thanks, Lexi. You have a good day too.